Hello everyone, welcome to this video about jazz violin. Um, chances are that if you are a regular watcher on my YouTube channel, maybe you got a notice from YouTube that I released a new video that you are a guitar player. But this video will be about violin. But it might still be interesting because it is part of this project that I started in my last video. And if you haven't watched that video and you are a guitar player, go watch that video for sure because it's about guitar. And this is a project in which I'm recording an album, playing most instruments or maybe all instruments on every track. And then I'm recording a bass, then I'm recording rhythm guitars, and then I'm recording a violin and a lead guitar. And then with each song, I will release 3 videos. One about the guitar solo, one about number 2 about the violin solo, and the third video will be about the process of mixing the track. So that will be the next video. So if you have watched the first video and you're listening to the track in this video, you might notice that it sounds different. The mix sounds different, and that is because of some events that have transpired this week. It's a pretty interesting story, but mostly for people that mix. So if you are interested in that story, then please watch the next video. In this video, I want to talk about the violin part of this song called Jeepers Creepers. And the first thing I want to do is I want to play the track so that you get a sense of what the track is about. And you can of course skip it, but I would recommend listening to the complete track just to get some context of what I'm talking about. And then after that, I'm going to talk about my thought process during playing. I will take some licks from the solo that I think that are interesting, and you will see notes on the screen. And if you want to have a transcription of the complete solo, I will release that tonight for my patrons on my Patreon. If you are interested in that, check the link in the description, and then you can have a transcription of the complete solo. So let's start with listening to the track, and I will give you a view of my computer right here, and you can see the audio go in my DAW, my digital audio workstation, which is Reaper. Okay, here we go. right, I hope you liked it. I have my headphones on now because I'm gonna play the track while playing along sometimes, um, so that you can listen to the audio of the track and watch me play. And then I'll talk about things that I think are interesting. So let's start from the beginning. Of course, in the intro, the violin is not playing. Um, it's only the guitar. So we'll start from there, and then I'll start playing along, and I'll stop the track when I think I need to talk about something. Okay, here we go. All right, so I was playing the theme along, and sometimes I was playing the embellishments on the recording, sometimes I wasn't, because of course it's improvised, and I never know which embellishments I'm gonna play. And now you maybe might wonder, how do you decide on which embellishments to play? Because the regular theme, just the theme of Jeepers Creepers, it's just basically 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, that's the A part, and then the bridge goes. And then that's the A. Of course, if you play the theme like that, there's nothing wrong with it, but in this style, or actually in all jazz styles, it's kind of the point that you start embellishing the theme. And there's no method of doing it, it's just a matter of experience and listening to lots of other people play themes and kind of. I mean, you could transcribe the embellishments, but I think in this case, probably listening a lot to great players and trying out embellishments yourself, it's probably enough. And you can just use your ears. What do you think? What do you like? What do you think sounds nice? For instance, to give some examples, let's embellish this. Right, only that. Maybe you could play some grace notes. So I'm playing. Right. Right? Or maybe you could play some slides. Not too many slides, but just some slides. 1, 2, 3. Right? Notice that I'm not playing slides on all 4 notes. Or maybe you could play some extra notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or maybe. Right? There's lots of stuff. Just use your ears and think about, of course, the chords that you're playing on, or in this case, the key is enough. We're in G, so I'm trying to embellish with notes from the key. But if I want to be chromatic, I can be chromatic, but then I know that I'm chromatic. I could do stuff like, or lots of stuff you can do. And then we're in the bridge. So I play. Right, so then the point also for the theme, but actually just for violin in general in this style, is to play both swinging and pretty, right? You gotta make this violin sound beautiful. In like other jazz styles, sometimes it is the point to make the violin sound more like maybe a trumpet or a saxophone, where you're not playing heavy vibrato, but and get a kind of airy tone, you know, maybe like. Like that. But in this style, you can be romantic. It's one of the things I like. You can still use your classical chops and your classical sensibility for playing the violin, but then you also got to swing. I will talk about swing when I hit the solo. So, but then, for instance, when I come to this part in the bridge, so the first part is. Now we go to G, D major, but this of course is an A. Right? I see a chance there to make a big slide to that A and use heavy vibrato. It's kind of. You could try to make contrasting sounds in your solo. For instance, the first part you could maybe play a little bit more conservative, the first 4 bars of the bridge, and then the second 4 bars you can go all out and use heavy vibrato and glissandi. Maybe like something like 1, 2, 3. Right? Something like that, or the other way around. Or whatever you think sounds nice. Also, record yourself and then you can listen back. It's always good to experience something like that as a listener and not only a performer. So then for the last A, I decide to play the theme 1 octave up. Right? And that's a common trick, right? You just jump octaves when you have to play the third A, for instance, because you already played that A part twice low. So to make it interesting, you could play the last A higher. You could also do the other way around. You could start high and then play the last A low, for instance. Now the important note in that third A is the G sharp, because it's E7 there. And that's the only time in the song there is an E7 in the A part, or in the bridge there's no E7. But in the A part it's only 2-5-1, A minor 7, D7, G. But then there's one bar with B half diminished, E7. Then you can play the G sharp. So I try to make a big deal out of it. There's not much to say about it. Just try to make the themes pretty. And you can basically do it with any theme. Even something like a bebop theme. You could still try to make it sound pretty if you're playing gypsy jazz. But even if you play bebop, if I go to if I'm playing in a more modern group, I still try to play like this. Because it's just the way I play and I like it. Okay, so then it's the guitar solo. If you want to see my walkthrough of the guitar solo, go watch the last video. But let's skip ahead to the violin solo. And I'll play something, I'll play a part and I'll play along. Let's stop there. So I transcribed the solo. I can see it on my desktop here. And let's talk a little bit about my thought process. So the chords of Jeepers Creepers are, I will put a chord sheet on the screen. You can see it there. And you can see it's the chords that I use are A minor 7, D7, G, and then D7, G. That's 4 bars, and then I repeat that. So that's 8 bars. And if you have a progression like this, like 2-5-1 or 5-1 or 1-6-2-5-1 or 4-5-1, like if there's only a 1, a 2, a 5, and a 4 chord, or any combination thereof, it's basically all one key, right? You can play G over the whole thing and sound pretty good. It's not my goal to play G all the time, even though you could do that. It's my goal to kind of weave in and out of that key. So I'm not following the chords per se. I'm not trying to play A minor 7, D7, G, right? But I am trying to play G and sounds that resolve to G. So if we look at beginning, I play, so that's F sharp half diminished, or you could think of it as D7-9. So I'm not playing a D, I'm starting on the third, and I'm playing it at the time there's a D7 sounding. So I'm following the chords right there, but for instance, for the first 2 bars, it's basically some nice lines in G. And then I resolve that line to an E. That's the 6. That's an important note in gypsy jazz. Lots of lines end on the 6, both for guitar and violin. Grappelli used to do this a lot, and I've done it so much that it's kind of in my ears. I'm automatically gravitate towards resolving lots of lines to the 6. And Dennis Cheng always says, oh, that's typical Christian. But it is not typical me. It's typical Grappelli. And that's what I listen to a lot. So you could practice that by just trying to resolve your lines to the 6. So if we're in G to the E, doesn't matter what line you're playing. Maybe you're playing some, let's play, right? So that's D7 to G. So the line could end there, or you could play some extra notes to the 6. Right, like that. So practice resolving your lines to the 6, both in major or in minor. It's a beautiful sound, and if you play something like that, then other guitar players that you're playing with, they will, maybe they don't even realize that you're doing it, but they will recognize this sound, and they will also appreciate it, appreciate your knowledge of the style, right? So, okay. Then I'm playing a lick maybe that we can play together. So I'll put the notes on the screen right now, and I'll play it slowly. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. A bit faster. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's a typical, I think it's a Grappelli lick. It's very easy to play on the violin. It sounds very virtuosic. So the trick to this lick is to play those accents that are in the notes. And the faster it goes, the more you can just play those accents. Right, you're kind of suggesting the notes. You're suggesting movement there, and it's really outlining the chords in this case, right? A minor 7. So I'm thinking C major 7. It's a common strategy. If you have A minor 7, you just think the major 7 chord from the third. So the chord's A minor 7. The third is C, so I'm thinking C major 7. And then I'm kind of outlining that arpeggio with triplets. Then I'm thinking D7, again thinking from the third. If it's a dominant chord, you can think a half diminished chord. I'm doing the same thing. So then I'm on G, and I'm again thinking from the third. And if you think from the third on a major 7 chord, you can think a minor 7 chord. So I'm thinking C major 7 on A minor, thinking F sharp half diminished on D7, and thinking B minor 7 on G. And then you get this. Of course, I'm not really thinking that. That's just the way this lick works, but I practiced this phrase in different keys, right? You got to be able to play this, for instance, in, let's say, C. Now, if this is the first time you're doing it, you got to think about how to do it. So you think, oh, it's D minor 7. So the first chord will be to think of from the third, F major 7. And it's G7, so I'm going to think half diminished from the third, which is a B, so. And then it's C major 7, so I'm gonna think minor 7 from the third. So we got. And so you practice this in not all keys, it's not necessary, but the keys that are most common, like C, D, G, F, B flat, E flat. And let me say something about the final one. So I'm playing this G sharp to the G. And it's important in this kind of music, or in jazz, that you are very clear with your half steps, right? So make sure that you're playing a high G sharp and a low G to make it clear. Because otherwise, this nice little subtlety that you're doing with the G sharp and the G will get lost. And this goes for every time you have a half step, because the line continues like this. So that E flat should be low, and that F sharp should be high. Because in the next bar you have an E. So you want to make it clear that you're playing with the notes like that. Okay, so let's continue. Lots that we can talk about here. So, but let's not talk about everything. So I'm starting with this little bluesy. So I'm thinking E flat minor. So it's E flat minor. And I'm adding the 9. So I'm thinking that because it's a sound that resolves to G, right? You could say I'm thinking D7 altered, because it's a flat 13, sharp 9, flat 9. And if you play flat 9, flat 13, you're playing an altered sound. It's not really important to know that, but what is important that you could think of is that if you want to play an interesting sound that resolves to G, E flat minor is one of those. So you could do some calculations. Okay, what would that be then in C, right? In C, if it's E flat minor in G, then in C that would be A flat minor. Right? If we're in F, that would be D flat minor. If we're in D, that would be B flat minor. Right? Stuff like that. So, but I want to look at the next bar. I'll put the notes on the screen now, and it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3. So mind to have notes, have steps again. So what is this? Well, this is a C minor 6 arpeggio, or A half diminished, that's the same. Usually I think about minor 6. So it's C minor 6 with one passing note. Resolving to the G, to the B on G. So why am I playing C minor 6? So the chord there's D7. But again, I'm not really thinking about the chords in this A part. I'm thinking more about playing G with and sounds that resolve to the G. And because I have lots of experience doing that, lots of times I play it at the right time, right? So the chord is D7, and playing C minor 6 on D7 is a common thing. So you think, oh wow, he's playing that line exactly on D7, but that's just because I've improvised so many times on chords like this that I kind of hear it at the right time, but it's not the point. The point is that I'm just trying to play C minor 6, because that's another sound that resolves very nicely to G. So you can already learn from the solo E flat minor, or E flat minor 6 even, resolves to G, C minor resolves to G, and why, that doesn't really matter, right? I can tell you why, but that's not important. Don't think about the reason why. Just remember C minor 6, E flat minor 6, and how that relates to G, right? So, for instance, you could think, okay, E flat minor, that's a minor sixth up from the G key, and C minor, that's a fourth up. So now if we're in F, right? So then we could play a minor sixth up, so that's D flat minor, resolve to F, or we could play a fourth up, that is B flat minor, resolve to F. Let's do B flat, right? B flat, we could go fourth up, so that's E flat minor. So we're in B flat. Or we could play F sharp minor. Yeah. And of course, you gotta practice it in a way. So, for instance, I probably never practice this in B flat to play F sharp minor, but I should practice it because it sounds nice. So that it is in your fingers, right? But this is the way I think about harmony. I think about sounds that resolve to another sound. So, and because the chords are only like 1, 6, 2, 5, it's basically for me all G. But I don't want to play G all the time because that gets boring. So then I think about sounds that can resolve to G. So one of the sounds that's in here, it's A minor 6 or F sharp half diminished. Another one is E flat minor. And C minor. Right? Like that. Are there any others? No. That's it. Okay, so then we get to the bridge. So let me play that for you. Let me talk a little bit about swing, right? Because swing is a difficult subject. So people always talk about, yeah, you got to swing, and you got to play a little bit behind the beat, and yeah, that could all work. But the way I think about swing is, and it's very difficult, right? Sometimes you just fail in swinging. Maybe the sound of your monitor is not good, or you don't feel good, or the song is difficult. There could be many things, or you got technical problems. But the way to think about swing, and this is a surefire way, this will always work, of course you got to do it, is that you make sure that your swing rhythm is consistent. So I like to play with a heavy swing, especially in this style. So I like to play like a long note and a short note. Right? But the key to making it swing is to be consistent, right? If you play some notes straight and some notes heavily swung and then a little bit swung, then it will sound sloppy, inconsistent, and it will sound like you're rushing sometimes or playing laid back, not in a nice way, right? So if you have a consistent swing rhythm, then you will swing. But it's very difficult to have a consistent string rhythm because, of course, you gotta change strings, or maybe you have some difficult fingerings, maybe you slur some notes, maybe you play separate bowing, because that's another thing. It doesn't matter if you slur the notes or separate bowing. The swing rhythm should be consistent. Even if you bow that many notes in a row, which you probably never will do. So I like to practice that with a chromatic scale. So then I'm, for instance, both slur two notes. Of course with the metronome. And then play maybe separate bones. And play maybe slur and slur 4 or slur 2 and 2, and then play 4 separate bones. And then make sure that it's consistent. And now when you play a solo, you gotta do the same thing. Be very consistent with your swing rhythm. And now when you listen back to yourself and you notice that it's not swinging, listen and see if you can hear that you're probably not playing consistent string rhythm. So that's the easy explanation. Now it's very difficult to do it. So I mean that's just maybe for another video. But when people talk about playing laid back or swinging, this is what they're mostly talking about: is having a consistent string rhythm. Right? Okay. Let's talk about the notes of the bridge that I'm playing. So I start. So because we're going to another key, we're going to C major, and I want to make that clear in my solo, right? That we're going to another key. This is my chance to play something harmonically cool or harmonically clear, so that finally, not in G. So I'm playing. Which is part of D diminished or B diminished. And if you play that in the key of C, or if you play that in the key of C, yeah, then it's a really clear resolution, because it's kind of B diminished to C to C. So I'm doing that here. I even continue in the first bar, because we're still on G7 or D minor G7. I'm not thinking about that D minor, I'm thinking about G7. Actually, I'm thinking about B diminished. I'm playing around that B diminished. And I resolve to C. But it's still B diminished. Resolve. So I'm just playing B diminished. Resolve. And back to B diminished. Resolve. Now we're going to the key of D. And in this solo I choose to play just a major scale in D, but I start on an A. But instead of going, which is fine, I have what way I decide that the scale gets boring, so I play some triplets. I'll put it on the screen. You see it right here. Let's play it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice that the triplet is kind of ghost notes. I play the first note and the last. You can play all notes too. But it's kind of a nice effect sometimes, especially when you have triplets. You know, like that other triplet lick, like to play the start and the end note. So it's not really complicated. It's just a major scale with a triplet in there. You could practice that in multiple keys. You could also practice the principle of it. Just try to play a major scale, up or down, and put some other intervals in it, right? Because I play a third, and then I play a triplet. So maybe you could try it down. Right? Just experiment a little bit about playing the major scale with some nice embellishments. And just use your ears to decide what sounds good. Okay, let's go to the last A. Okay, so maybe nice to talk about my thought process. So what I do in many solos is in the end at the end of my solo I start playing high licks, high stuff, and the reason is because that's what Corpelli did too, and it's very exciting. And when I started learning this style, and once I got the hang of improvising and swing and outlining chords, which is very important, you got to be able to be harmonically sophisticated in some way, right? It doesn't mean you play every chord, but it means that you have a very clear idea of what you want to express harmonically. But I noticed that Corpelli would create excitement with playing high, shouting lines, right? So on guitar, for instance, I talked about it in that video. The thing that creates excitement are, for example, chord solos and triplets. So I work my ass off on being able to play continuous triplet lines. So on violin, this is not really that important. It is important though, I think, to be able to play high lines. It's what would distinguish you from a regular jazz player, like a regular jazz violin player, which is a whole other ball game in some respects. But the one thing they probably won't do very much is play high on the violin, right? Because it's very difficult to play lots of bebop conventions high up on the violin. But if you study Corpelli and transcribe some of his high stuff, you will notice that it's not really based on a lot of chromaticism. It's based on bluesy stuff. So one of his iconic high licks I play. So let's try to play it together. Let's find the G. No, I just in a real solo I slide to it, but I've played this lick so much that I usually slide to the right place. So 3, 4, 1. 1, 3, 4, 1. Slow it's pretty difficult to play because what you gotta do is you play the G and you play this open, or not open, you play this harmonic. But if you play an open string, you will hear that harmonic if you play fast. It's kind of an effect anyway, right? So you could play the open string, you could try to hit that harmonic with your first finger, or you hear this squeaky sound. It doesn't matter, it's about the excitement. And then it's a Corpelli. To continue, that's the way Corpelli would continue this line. Sometimes he would play a trill. And then you're free to do whatever you want. But then I play this kind of cliche line. Again, half steps are important. So low B flat, high C sharp. So even though it's a kind of a cliche line, if you play it high, it gets exciting. And then I want to also look at this next line. It sounds like this: 1, 2, 3. This is kind of a bluesy thing, and it just sounds great. You know, you've played that high thing, you're in the bluesy mood. Continue with some bluesy lines, and this is easy to play, but it sounds great. So the thing you gotta know: if you hit the B flat, do this kind of thing that's illegal in classical violin, and in some respect it's illegal in jazz violin if you do it all the time. But if you do it like once or twice in a bluesy phrase, it's great. It's not possible to do this in every key like this with the open string, but it's still worth it to try to find a way to play it. in the keys that you are probably gonna play. So, for instance, if we're in the key of D, so let's think about it. So we're starting on the fifth of the main key, and then we're playing kind of G minor with a 6 in there. So if we have to play it in D, we're gonna start on the fifth of D, which is an A, and then we're gonna play A minor. Gonna play D minor, sorry, but then with a 6. So if we want to have that kind of shake, we gotta probably play there. Let's try to play it in B flat. So we gotta start on the fifth, right? So F. Then we're gonna play B flat minor. Then we add the 6. Right? This kind of shakes works best on the fourth finger for some reason. Right, you gotta find a way to make that work. So it's a kind of a shout chorus that I wrote for the guitar and the violin. I just wrote that, I explained it in the last video, by just playing rhythm and then singing lines that sound nice. And so I came up with this. Octaves. So the trick with octaves, probably you know this if you're a classical player, is to put more weight on the bottom notes, right? That's a way to make those octaves sound more in tune more often. And then there's a trill with the fourth finger. Actually, in the recording, I kind of choke on my pinky. I left it there. And the thing about trills, some people can just trill faster than other people. That's just the way it is, because it's kind of a twitch reflex. But if you have a slower trill, it doesn't matter, just as long as it's consistent. Oh, that's really slow. You could experiment with making the trill with a kind of vibrato movement. And then I'm improvising this lick. That's a really famous Capelli lick. Notice that it ends on the 6. And then we're going back to the theme. That's really like a Capelli bluesy thing in D, right? Remember this lick? That's the same kind of principle, but then in D. Because we're playing D minor and a 6. And then we have the theme together with the guitar. Let's play the end of the track. So about the end, how do you end the Gypsy Jazz song? Right, the most famous way would be. So in this case, I would play. Or play some blues thing. Or end on the 6, right? That's nice. But I thought it would be nice to to go to the 9. So what I tried to do was make every instrument play a different note on top. So the bass plays low G. Then one of the rhythm guitars plays the 6, this note, on top. One plays the D. The solo guitar is playing a G, a high G, and I thought the violin played a high E. That's just a nice effect. It's also exciting to do that live, because you might fail and miss the note, right? It's kind of funny. Yeah. Well, that's it for what I'm doing on the violin. I hope it was you learned something from it, or that you liked it. And I think it's nice to approach, especially the violin, on this channel like this, because it's much easier for me with the violin to show lines in context instead of like 2-5-1 lines. On guitar, it's a whole different thing, because guitar, the way I play guitar, it's based on fret numbers, right? And it's very easy to shift. Once you got a phrase, you can shift it a couple of frets and you play another key very easy. But on violin, it's much more difficult. And I think about notes on violin, like really like the note names, something I never think about on guitar. So that's why my thought process on violin is completely different from guitar. So it's easier for me to talk about songs. So this project is a very nice opportunity for me to talk about violin. Now, the third video, the video after this, will be about the mix. And it's pretty interesting, because this week something changed in my setup, which enables me to approach the mix in a very different way. And I'll discuss that in that video. So tune in for that. And if you are not interested in mixing, which I can imagine, then keep watching this channel, because there will be a violin video for the next song soon. Okay, until then, bye.